I want to thank everybody for coming. This is an important celebration in the life of the Cape Cod Cooperative Bank for a variety of reasons, some of which you already know, some of which you all sense. This is a celebration of where we've been for 90 years. And when I say where we've been, literally, if we look over John's shoulder in front of what is now Bank of America, there was a two-story colonial home that served as home for First National Bank of Yarmouth. And from those roots, we were formed in a front room that almost looked like a patio, so to speak, or maybe a porch. And from there, we operated for the first 29 years of our existence, sharing space as only two banks in an era at that time could. That changed over time to the point where we get to today. But the celebration is in large part not just all our roots, but our celebration is what we have become. And much of that is attributed to so many people, but you know, we have those core constituencies that are important to everybody. There are employees, and there's a dramatic number if we ever went back and tried to count how many that exceeds 500 or 600. We've had great leadership from boards of directors. That number exceeds 100 over the 90 years. Always thoughtful, always caring, always concerned about what the community needed, not just what the community received. But most importantly, you don't stay in business for 90 years without customers. You know, it's that very simple fact of life, that to be successful in the retail world, you need to have customers, you need to serve customers. And that's really part of the excitement of the past 90 years. So before we get through, we're going to reflect on the past, we're going to renew our commitment to customers, and we're going to look ahead a little bit, because that's all a part of where we are. Because celebration really describes success. And success is what got us here in so many ways. I have often thought that I wonder how our founders would reflect on the fact that there were somewhere in excess of 30 independent banks on Cape Cod in those 1920s. Literally, in every village, there was a small commercial bank, there was a small savings and loan. Of that, we are one of three still in existence today after 90 years. So that's part of that celebration issue, is where others have chosen to take a different path, or the path was taken for them. We have taken the path and chose success and driven ourselves to that end. I think that our founders would also be amazed that over those 90 years, we have built up over $60 million in retained earnings. Right now, that's our only form of capital. You know, it's a success factor. It started with day one and the profits that they generated, small, modest, because their roots were the savings and loan industry. We were formed with home ownership being the key component. Literally, many of the people at First National Bank of Yarmouth reached the point that they had maximized what they could put out in home ownership. So a group of their directors with some other people formed the bank expressly to put in savings $1 at a time, $1 per month. Some could put more in. And as the deposits grew, then money could be lent to people for housing. And those were our roots, and stayed our roots until really the 1970s, when the law changed and we were allowed to attract checking accounts. That started to change issues. In the 1990s, we added commercial lending. And so in its own way, we have emerged as a community bank, one who serves hopefully all the needs in different ways, in a certainly positively different way of what we're doing. I think successful organizations, however, hopefully have a common theme. And that common theme is, let's not just dwell on the past, let's try and look ahead. And we have been doing that. I think all of you are aware, 2008 was a painful year for the industry, for the economy, in so many different ways. I'm proud of our organization. We decided that we needed to pull in our horns and be ready to come out of it sooner rather than later, and we did. With that, we started to undertake an introspective discussion of who we were and what was needed looking ahead. We did decide not to fall in the trap of only believing ourselves. You know, one of those age-old tricks that sometimes you can trick yourself into thinking you're smarter than the person next door. And we brought in a person who helped us both talk internally and look at the external world as well. And we really came away with one conclusion. Our customers loved us and knew who we were, and we knew how to serve them. But in some ways, we were the best kept secret out there, okay? Not enough people knew us. And so if we wanted to set ourselves up to thrive going forward, one of the things that we needed to do was to progress and talk about some different issues. As we looked at that and looked at the market, our board of directors challenged management. Sometimes if you're management, that's a painful process. But they challenged us in a positive way. They asked us to work on creating a brand with that theory that brand is a story. And that story, in its own way, is a promise. And it's a promise to the public. What are you going to do, and how are you going to do it? And so, as we have progressed, we are now calling the next 90 the next chapter. I've tried to be careful as we talk to all the people we work with, however, to point out it's not a novel. It's a biography. A key step in that was to obtain more skills than we had. And one of the skills we sought to find was someone with a stronger marketing and retail background than existed at this point. And so I'm proud to introduce to you John Falone. John came to us and has really become the author of the next chapter. And he points out that author is more storytelling than it is recrafting. So as we talk a little bit more about some of the new things, I'm going to let John do that discussion, and then I'll come back and wrap up with a couple of things. So